Good afternoon. On behalf of World Business Chicago and our small business initiative, ChiBizHub, we welcome you. This afternoon's conversation was inspired by feedback we received from members of our small business community. We encourage and welcome you to share other topics that you'd like us to present in the future. We also invite you to visit our online portal dedicated to supporting our small businesses, ChiBizHub.com. On this portal, we also have a dedicated area where news, links, and resources of available grants, loans, and other support is updated nearly hourly. You'll find this information at ChiBizHub.com/COVID-19 support. It is my privilege to welcome a colleague of mine, Jasmine Garcia, who will kick off this afternoon's conversation. Jasmine, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. ChiBizHub is the city's online portal that links expert service providers to Chicago's small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups looking to start, scale, and accelerate their businesses. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, we quickly shifted our work to include webinars like the one today, providing a forum where business owners and operators can gather and get up-to-date information in real time, have the chance to get questions answered, and connect with other business owners. In sum, we're all in this together. I welcome you to visit our portal at www.chibizhub.com and check out all the business resource provided available to you for your small business. Kicking it off to Kendra.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for the introduction. So as my colleague mentioned, my name is Kendra Thomas, and I'm one of the business resource managers for ChiBizHub, the one-stop portal for entrepreneurs and business owners. And today we have an exceptional group of individuals who will be presenting. So I would first like to go through the agenda for today's webinar. We will have Ms. Tamora Hughes, who is from the Greater Englewood Community Development Corporation, that will be providing 10 tips for business startups. After that, we will have Mr. Daryl Newell from Seaway Self-Help Credit Union, as well as Ms. Kristen Freeman from Project Forward, that will talk about resetting your business and ensuring that you have all of your correct documentation up to date if you're looking to apply for any loans or grants. Now I will turn it over to Ms. Tamora Hughes from the Greater Englewood Community Development Corporation, and she will be presenting 10 tips for business startups. Thank you so much, Tamora.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to be able to share this information with you and everybody else that's on the panel. Look forward to this being a great workshop and just sharing information and knowledge. Again, my name is Tamora Hughes. I'm with the Greater Englewood CDC and also the Illinois Small Business Development Center at Greater Englewood. So we're elated to be able to share with you some information and also to let everybody know that at our facility, we do provide free coaching and advising. So as we're going through these slides and any questions you may have, you can always reach out to us at Greater Englewood, and that's www.gecdc.org. Again, www.gecdc.org is our website where you can get more information. So now I'm going to share with you 10 tips that you'll need to really kind of make sure that you're stable. The first thing is you need to research. You got to research, and keep researching your industry. You need to be able to determine what that potential market is. If you kind of had this idea and you need to figure out if it's going to work or not, you need to figure out if it's just a hobby or it's actually a business that can grow. So you'll need to research. You'll need to size up your competition, see what other people are doing. If there's somebody already out there doing kind of what you want to do, you'll need to size up that competition, because that's going to help determine how you're going to build the foundation so that you can grow with the competition that's surrounding you. You need to also be able to test it to make sure that this is something useful for your client. You want to be able to launch something, test it, ask some questions, survey people, just to make sure that you don't spend a lot of money and you have not tested the market. And then also positioning then your product and services. That means being able to put your product services out there that people understand what it is, how they can reach you, and so forth. All that happens when you do the research. So I've listed some bullet points there for you to see as far as where to get this information. You can go to Google Analytics. You can use the U.S. Census Bureau. You can do any kind of search engines through Google, but also you can do the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and BizStats is another great website to go to. And then, of course, just do a Survey Monkey. Create a Survey Monkey, kind of put the idea out there, and then be able to share it with family and friends and colleagues and so forth, so you can see if your business is actually a business that interests other people. Next slide, please. Number 2, do a feasibility check. Do you have the capability to start this business right now? How feasible is your idea? So you want to go through, do you know why you're considering this business opportunity? That's a question that you'll ask yourself. Do you know which skills and areas of expertise are critical to the success of your business? These are questions you need to ask yourself. Write them down. Start figuring this out. Do you know the necessary expenses like rent and wages and insurance and so forth? What are those? Do you have enough money to actually start up and be able to sustain as you grow? And can you do this as a sole proprietor, or will you need a team? Will you need consultants? Will you need individuals that can be able to help you, especially if you don't have the area expertise that you need, and you need to be able to have, if you're not really good in accounting, will you be able to have someone on your team? They might not be staff, but they could be a consultant to be able to help you to navigate, to be able to help you with your finances and so forth. So you want to make sure that you have a team. Next slide, please. Number 3, incorporate your business. Now, I've seen this. I've been taking a lot of calls from individuals that want to qualify for some of these grant opportunities, but they are not able to do it. And one of the main reasons is because they're just kind of operating pop-up, mom and pop, not really incorporating. Even if you're a solo entrepreneur, even if it's just you, in order to be in a situation so that you become a legal entity, then you'll need to incorporate, even if it's just you. You'll need to be able to incorporate your business. So you need to choose a structure. You need to maybe get some legal advice if you don't understand if you should be a S Corp, a C Corp, a LLC, a sole proprietor, but you need to be able to incorporate your business. I suggest these are pro bono attorneys. You can go to the Chicago Lawyers Committee of Legal Rights on their website and be able to sign up to get some pro bono services so that they can help you decide which legal entity you want to do. You need to go, it's free, get your federal employee identification number. So when you're doing your business, don't use your personal social security number. You want to be able to have your own number so that the business has its own number. So you want to get that. It's free. You can go to irs.gov for that. You want to register the ownership and incorporate then through cyberdriveillinois.com. And also there might be some other places that you need to incorporate or through the Cook County. So there are various ways, but the first step is to do the CyberDrive so that then you can grab and have an assumed name, meaning that if you're operating in that name, then no one else can operate in that name for a whole year. And you'll have to do annual reports. So if you want to keep your name and start branding your name, then you're going to need to be able to register that and pay the fee, but then also to be able to annually keep up with that registration. So you'll want to do that. Then you want to register with the Illinois Department of Revenue, and I provided a link so that then you'll be able to be known also with the Illinois Department of Revenue when you're actually generating revenue, taking care of your taxes. So you'll need to determine what your income tax will be for your business, and making sure all of those things are incorporated, all of that's legal, everything is putting you in good standing. So if anything happens where you want to qualify for some of these loans and grants and things like that, you have all the paperwork, because we'll hear a little bit later that those that are in the banking institution are going to need that information. Next slide, please. So as you do that, there's some other things you need to do. You also need to get a DUNS number. So that is the Data Universal Numbering System. So you want to make sure you register for that. This is the purpose of this, is so that on the federal level, you can be identified as within an industry, operating in that industry. So when some of these kind of bids and grants and things come out on the federal level and you're registered in that way, they will send you notification if you like to see receive notification of different bid opportunities, different contract opportunities, because you have now been listed under that industry sector. So it's important that you do it. Now it becomes a requirement, especially with the state of Illinois. If you want to do any contracting or get any grants, you will be required to have a DUNS number. So it's something important. It's also free, so that you can be able to go out there and get that done. Then you want to register with the System Award Management, which is SAMS, that's SAMS.gov. SAMS actually speaks to DUNS. So once you do your DUNS number, you get cleared for your DUNS number. Then when you go to SAMS, SAMS will ask DUN, is this a real company or not? And your name will pop up in the SAM portal so that you can finish the registration for SAM. You want to do this now, because when those grant opportunities and those funding opportunities come out and it requires you to have that number, and that system gets backlogged, sometimes that takes weeks in order for you to get that number. So this is the time now to get all of your incorporation and all of your registrations done while it's not that busy. Then you want to register with the GATA, and that's Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. So this is through Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity with the state of Illinois. You need to register for this. We're going to be talking about some grants and some things that they posted. You will have to have a GATA registration in order to qualify for some of the things that the governor is posting out to us. So you want to make sure that you go through the system, through grants.illinois.gov, and actually register as if you haven't already. And if you have, make sure everything is up to date. Make sure you're active in all areas and sectors of that portal. Then to protect your products and your services, you may need to get a U.S. trademark or a patent and things like that. So I'm providing this information so in case you need to lock some things down, especially as you build your brand and you begin to build an opportunity so that people know you don't want people to take your identity. So you want to make sure that you copyright, that you have any trademarks or patents, that you make sure you take care of all of that before you release any of your information. Then you want to just again determine your sales tax and all of that. So you can go to www.tax.illinois.gov, or also you need to go to the IRS so that you pay your taxes. Next slide. Number 4, this is the one I love. This is what we help people with, and it's creating a business plan. And basically, all of us know what it is. It's basically a roadmap to being able to figure out and navigate where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. Everybody needs some kind of plan. Now, back in the day, a business plan used to be 60, 50, 70, 80 pages. Not anymore. A business plan, you can get a nice, thorough business plan in 10 pages. The thing is getting straight to the point, giving the information you need, so that then when a financial officer or anybody needs to read your plan, they can navigate through that, get to the information they need, and not have to read through a lot of paperwork. So you want to make sure that you develop a business plan that covers the essence of your business, your products, your service, all the markets that you hit, any kind of procedures, manufacturing procedures that's required, your ownership, who's going to manage your business, and all of that should be in your business plan. So it's going to serve two functions. And the first is just basic management. It's a tool to help you direct you into the future. But also the second thing, it should be, and it is, a mandatory document so that when you seek any kind of financial assistance, they're going to want to see a plan. So you're going to need to have it anyway. Start working on it now. Next slide. Number 5, design your marketing strategy. So this is the time to do that too. The whole purpose of a marketing strategy is to help you and to provide projections of sales, but also market share and target markets, and then also to support your belief that your marketing plan will achieve the following projections, and that's your target market, your pricing, your sales, your distribution, your warranty issues, your service issues, as well as promotion. So you want to be able to, this is key right now with the marketing strategy. This is what you need so that then when a pandemic happens or anything like that, you already have in place that if I can't do it a traditional way, I have another way to get this executed. So you need to be able to know how to market and to reach the audience. So if you're not reaching the audience face to face, how do you reach your client now? So these are the things that you need to develop, and having a marketing strategy of the tools that you'll use in order to still continue to communicate to your audience. Next slide, please. Number 6, operations. This describes how you will plan to produce or how you plan to perform your services. It's going to tell you the how and the where of how you're going to carry it out. It's going to determine if you need a physical space, what kind of equipment you'll need, what kind of labor requirements will be included. So in your operations, you're talking about the location. It could be at your home. It could be an office business, a home business. So whatever the case may be, you're determining what kind of equipment you'll need, what kind of space you'll need, what kind of processes are you actually processing right now. Some people have businesses now, they're making masks and so forth, or face coverings. So any situation like that, you need to understand how that operation is, how many clients you're going to have, how many customers you're going to have, and to be able to understand how you're going to do that. And are you doing it alone, or actually will you need to increase in your labor so that you're actually hiring people to help you get the job done? Next slide. Management and organization. So now you want to build that team. You want to make sure that you have people that are experienced, that are talented, that can help you manage day to day. You want to make sure that you're doing all of this and having all of this in line, particularly if you're seeking equity financing. Generally, a venture capital firm will conduct a complete reference check of each person on your team, meaning that if you're including a team of people, you want to make sure that they have the background, because they're going to check. Whoever's giving you funding is going to check and make sure that you have the expertise on your side. Particularly if it's not in your resume, they're going to look for it in somebody else's resume. So you want to make sure that in your plan, in your business plan, that you have a management team, organization, key management, whoever's going to own it, if it's 100%, if it's 50%, who those individuals are, your board of directors, who's actually that you're speaking to and that's helping you guide you through this, and also any kind of professional services, consultants, and so forth. Next slide. Survey your potential customers. So this is where you gotta need to figure out who your target market is. So you need to have, when you're building your business, and we're talking about just you being sustainable, but also making sure that if you're developing it in your startup, that you start doing this now. You have to have the customer in mind. So the suggestion is to survey any current customers you have, but potentially survey those that are in your target market, and to begin to ask them, displaying or actually presenting them your product or your services, and then asking them about various questions in your survey so that you know what to offer and you know what not to offer maybe. So you're kind of casting a net out there so that then you can see who's interested and who's not, but also you get their perspective of what they're interested in, so that then when you're building your business, you may need to pivot your business. There are many people that are going through right now that have businesses, and they're going to have to survey their market again, because they're going to need to determine, is my customer still out there, or has my customer gone away, or is my customer in another area or industry right now? So you'll have to survey and be able to determine where your potential customer is right now in the market that we're in and in the situation that we're in. Next slide. Consider a pop-up. So this is kind of where you survey, but then you put it in action, okay? So this is where you create a plan to test your market, but then now whatever you know you want to do, you have a market out there. Now you need to create something so that you can test it. It could be actually a pop-up that's a literal place, or it could be a pop-up online. It could be Etsy or something like that, where you're actually testing it. You're seeing people to purchase your item or purchase your services. It could be your own website, but what you want to do is kind of get the word out there, build your name, build a brand, test it, so that then before you actually go and spend all your money setting things up, you are all sure that your audience is out there and they want what you have. Next slide. So then the last slide is financing your business for short and long term. So I'm just touching on the points. We're about to go deeper into this, but the amount of financial information needed in your business will depend on the type and the stage of financing you need, the amount of money you need, the nature of financing that's being sought. So generally, these are just basic information questions that you have that are required when you're starting to think about this, when you start doing that business plan and you actually have to put your financials in. These are the things that you'll need to know, short term and long term. So you need to know what you need right now, but how will you survive? How will you survive through the stages? You may need to actually do financial forecasting, so that then you can have different determinations that if this happens, then I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do that. So you need to be able to know how you're going to finance short term and long term. I think that's all my slides. So now we'll move on and hear about the money from the money people.
Thank you so much, Tamora. We greatly appreciate your time. I apologize. I did forget to mention at the beginning of the webinar, we will have a Q&A portion near the end of the conversation. So if you do have any questions for Tamora, please put those in the chat and my colleague Jasmine will capture those. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Daryl Newell from Seaway, a division of Self-Help Federal Credit Union. And we will have Ms. Kristen Freeman from Project Forward. They will be talking to us more about resetting your business and ensuring that you're ready to apply for loans and grants. Thank you so much. Darrell?
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to present today. Both Kristen and I are very pleased that we can share the knowledge that we've gained over the years working with entrepreneurs such as yourself. With that, let's get this presentation started. And this just tells you a little bit more about who we are. Let's keep moving forward. And that's my photo there with my contact information. It will be shared. I'm sure this deck will be shared as well. So feel free to reach out for me, and let's keep moving. This particular slide tells you all about Kristen. Kristen, if you could like to share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you're doing, that'd be great. Well, as you can see, Kristen has done a wonderful job working with lots of different organizations. Kristen and I go way back. We went to the same college and have been fortunate enough to spend time in the community, giving back and providing services. You'll see some community organizations that you may be familiar with that provide technical assistance that are great resources. So by the time you come to see the banker like myself, you'll be fully prepared. You'll take advantage of those tips that Tamora has provided you and some of the other technical assistance pointers that are available out there in the marketplace. Go to our next slide.
I think I was still
Kristen?
on mute. Can you hear me?
No worry, Kristen. Yeah, I'll let you take over and drive for a couple slides
Okay.
and share your wisdom as well.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So really quick highlights about my company, as Daryl mentioned. I have worked primarily with organizations like Tamora, so Quad Community Development Corporation, Far South CDC. So these are organizations that small businesses typically have an opportunity to receive free resources from, ways that you can help grow your business through understanding how to navigate city systems, so how to get permits, how do you get an awning done, all the way to actually trying to get financing for things like the Small Business Improvement Fund, as well as operation capital to actually operate and grow your business. So next slide, please. These are just a few select projects. More recently, I have had the opportunity to work with the Chicago Community Loan Fund, doing a pop-up call center. So as Tamora mentioned, pop-ups are not only for retail, but there can be a number of service-based industries that will do pop-ups as well for very specific initiatives. And I had the fortunate opportunity to lead and design one. Also, Brownsville Summer Nights, which is a community event that literally is about bringing people to spend money within a commercial corridor space. And then Small Business Saturday, Shop Forward pop-up. So again, I am a business model who does value pop-ups and utilize them to activate certain corridors. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, I recently worked with the Chicago Community Loan Fund, and in addition to doing the PPP pop-up call center, have been working on the Chicagoland COVID-19 Community Development Resource Guide. So this is a 42-page document, a living document, so you can submit information if you know of any that is currently not in this guide. But I think we are on the 4th round of updates and revisions. So the purpose of this is really to help identify specific resources for both for-profit organizations as well as nonprofits, but also to help dissect information in a relatively easy way. So showcasing, especially when the government is releasing funds that could act as a grant, could act as a loan, and a lot of information was released at the same time, wanting to make sure that businesses had the understanding of what was actually available. Next slide. So want to review some very quick tips about how to utilize this and how to help prepare your business. The first tip is to read the guide. And I say this not in a facetious way, but a lot of times business owners are getting very overwhelmed with the information that's available. And sometimes the information is at your fingertips. So if there are organizations that are producing materials, and I know that CCLF is not the only one, please take the time to read the guide. If you don't want to go through all 42 pages, you can really use the control function and highlight the words, like search for words or key terms, and it will literally take you to the grant or the loan opportunity that you're looking for. So resources within the CCLF guide are updated almost every 10 days. We try to be really responsive, especially highlighting things like the City of Chicago's micro grant and where the City of Chicago has the resiliency fund available. The county is rolling out funds. Next slide, please. And so we want to ensure that we are in a position of making sure that this information is getting to the organizations that need them. And so, as I mentioned, there are resources available for both for-profit and nonprofit organizations, but it also includes resources that are coming from the state, the county, the city, as well as private providers, in addition to what the federal government has available. And so, as Tamora mentioned, your business had to be ready to apply at multiple levels. So some of the private providers may not ask for you to have your GATA done, or you might not have to have your DUNS number, but at the very least, most of them are going to ask for incorporation documentation. So articles of incorporation or a city business license. Next slide, please. So this is an example of funding that's still available. It's coming through the state of Illinois, the Illinois Small Business Emergency Loan Fund. And so many businesses are saying, well, what's available for me? I don't know what's out here. There's a lot of information, and it is. And if you notice, the lender, they're DCEO lending partners, meaning DCEO is not the direct entity that is giving you this money, but there are organizations that have been already approved to be lenders in partnership with DCEO. And so this was just a snapshot in the guide. And so the information on where you can go to actually get it is an active link. And if this were a hyperlink, you could actually click on it and it would take you to the full page where this information lives. Next slide, please. COVID-19. So this is a grant that I don't think, or assistance, I should say, that I don't think a lot of businesses are aware of, and it is through the state of Illinois. It's really to help businesses be able to prepare and respond to COVID. So because organizations have had to do a lot in regards to like social distancing considerations, you might have had to incorporate new, as you said, technology, marketing strategies, delivery. So this is a reimbursable grant that will allow you to be responsive in regards to COVID. So this is an opportunity that I haven't really heard very much being, talked about in the sphere, but this is something that is available and it is within the guide. Next slide. So one thing we really wanted to try to do was, in addition to separating nonprofits and for-profits, but really segmenting out some of the service industries. So we know that within a lot of urban areas, there are a high concentration of like self-care businesses. So hair salons, barbershops, and many times these businesses are not receiving or eligible for some of the other assistance for a number of reasons. So we do have some industry-specific information that is in this guide. And there are a couple of grants that are available for people who get a lot of cash wages, as well as those specifically within the beauty industry. And so there were other industries that are highlighted in this guide, especially because CCLF is a real estate-focused community development finance institution. There is a real estate section in there. So if your business is a real estate-based business, there are specific resources for you. Now, some of them duplicate what is already in other sections, but they will highlight the specific real estate related uses, because what we're also finding is that sometimes the entrepreneurs aren't making the connection that some of these opportunities are for their business. So we wanted to make sure that we did highlight and say, no, this is really for you. And here are some very explicitly approved funds that you can use for certain types of considerations. Next slide, please. So tip number 2, own your mess. And as Tamora mentioned, so if you notice, a lot of us, we are reiterating the same information because it's something that we're seeing as practitioners on a consistent basis. It is something that is very, very real. And so many times as a business owner, you're able to do some things to get by. But COVID has kind of pulled the veil back on all of that. COVID has multiplied and exposed every single business owner's weakness. So your technology isn't working, you didn't have the best staff, you didn't have the best training program, you didn't do marketing, you were just kind of winging it. COVID has made your pain points multiply. And so in order to really get past that, because we are trying to prepare businesses for life after COVID, that's why I'm calling it Reset Forward, because yes, you really should take this as an opportunity to reset your business. I'm sure you're hearing pivot a lot. Pivot your business. But in some cases, we don't necessarily just want to pivot. We want to completely reset, because some of the things that you were doing, you should not continue to do. And so part of that is owning your mess. Next slide. And what do I mean by owning your mess? Next slide, please. Getting prepared for some of the assistance. And so this is a page that's actually the first page in the resource guide. If you don't have everything that's in this checklist, you have some work to do. And much of it, Tamora talked about. Business license, articles of incorporation, bank statements. You will typically need your 3 years of organizational tax returns. You also should have documentation of your financial hardship. So meaning if you are in a business where you're having difficulty procuring supplies or your supply costs are going up, you need to start documenting that. Also, if you've had to lay off staff, you need to also give your staff appropriate communication as far as what is going on and what you expect to happen. And some of this information is really on an ongoing basis, so we're not at a point where we just have all the information to make all these decisions, but you do need to have something specifically documenting what you're doing right now, and if things change, documenting what you're doing in that stage. As it pertains to tax returns, the amount of returns you need will vary upon the type of funding that you're applying for. Some of the grants that are within this guide don't ask for tax returns. They do a lot of self-certifying information. So they're literally doing a checkbox. Has your business been impacted by COVID? What percentage has that been? And they're not doing very much verification. But on the flip side of that, understand that that's going to be an extremely competitive process, because that means there are really no barriers to entry. You're just literally doing a 5-minute application. And so there might be, and some of them are national grants, so there might be 50,000 applications that are coming in within a funding period. So you should also have a consideration of what that may mean for you in regards to your chances of securing the funding, as opposed to a particular grant or a loan program that is solely tied to a geographic region like the city of Chicago or Cook County or the state of Illinois. Also ensuring that your business is in good standing. So I have been working with business owners who have not necessarily been in good standing and have supported them on the PPP. And so we'll start the loan process, and I'm telling them, like, you've got to get in good standing, because this can be a reason the lender chooses not to give you a loan, because that's some of the basic stuff. And I'm sure Daryl can chime in on that a little more, but those are some of the basic things they check for. Did you pay the state? Did you pay the city? Does your business legally exist on paper? Daryl, is there anything you want to add there?
And you're absolutely right, Kristen and Tamora. You guys have done an excellent job setting the stage for our participants today. So at Seaway, we have specialized in PPP loan funding. So to date in the state of Illinois, we've done over 186 approved applications, funding 2,100 jobs for about $16 million. So what Kristen has said is absolutely correct. You have to have your documentation in place for this federal program. It's a 2-page application, and we have been encouraging everyone to apply. But if you are a sole proprietor, if you receive a 1099, you should have filed your 2019 taxes. However, there are ways that you can still receive that funding by having what we call a pro forma tax return, either a Schedule C or a K-1 or 1120S, or whatever documentation your accountant provides for you to show your income and as well as your expenses. So with the PPP program, what we found is it's 2-page application. You definitely need to know how you're incorporated. If you use a payroll company, you want to definitely have your 941s if you're for profit. If And then you have to have your financials in order. If you're a nonprofit, your 990 may be used. And we've seen some nonprofits that do their own payroll and some that use a service. We found that those that are using a service or who can provide some documentation via financial statements, bank statements, or accountant documents are able to breeze through the process and be approved. And what we've also found is, small business owners a lot of times have made it without having to obtain a loan, right? So we sometimes see errors on the application. And so what we decided to do was set up guides and provide guides and cheat sheets to assist you in completing the application. And the reason why I'm still discussing the PPP funding is I was on a call this morning. There is still $110 billion worth of PPP funding available for small business owners to be able to pay your employees. Right now, a PPP loan is forgivable as long as 75% of the loan amount is spent on payroll. The other 25% can be spent on mortgage interest and rent and insurance and other expenses. But you have to expend at least 75% so that your loan will be forgiven. There is guidance around forgiveness. You cannot expense the salaries that are now funded by a PPP loan. You will no longer be able to do that, right? And we are working with legislators now to see if the process or the time frame before you have to repay, which is currently 8 weeks, can be extended even further to allow small business owners the benefit of allowing some of the expenses related to this recession to pass before you have to repay if indeed you had to use that particular funding on some other type of expense. I mean, it's a 2-year loan, you're paying it, it's a 1%, it's the best funding you'll ever get. There's no personal guarantee. Now, this is where having those advisors that Tamora talked about come into play, because you really should be consulting, your accountant, your banker, your attorney, if you're fortunate enough to receive those funds, the best way to deploy them. I was on a call with a Harvard Business Review professor, and he was talking to some Harvard Business School grads. And the first thing he said was, where else can you get 1% money without a personal guarantee? Right. The key is are you able to use your current business model to generate some return greater than that? So if you can make 8% on 1% money or make a 10% margin, you're in business with that money, right? But you want to be thoughtful about it. And we've also encouraged folks to be thoughtful about applying for PPP funding, especially if you had employees that were getting paid at the lower wage amounts, $10, $11, $12, because if they are on unemployment with that extra $600 per week that's been added to unemployment payouts, right, it may be more advantageous for them to stay away from the job as opposed to coming to work. So you really want to think about all of that, because there were some reports earlier in the process with PPP-1 that there were some employers that applied for the money, got the money. However, they could bring their employees back, but the employees would be making less money, and that upset the employees, and then put the employer in a trick bag around, hey, how do I, now I'm going to have to repay this loan. But if you really think about what I just said, at 1% is really, you might be able to figure out something else to do with that money, reinvent yourself, go and come up with another business model that diversifies your revenue stream, that's easy for you to invest that money in, to continue to grow and change and reset and stay relevant. So, there are lots of considerations when it comes to the PPP loan funding, but I have been an advocate of apply. No loan amount is too small. We've had folks receive as little as, $750, up to larger institutions, larger nonprofits receiving up to $2 million, because that's just how large their payroll operations just happens to be based on the work that they're doing in the community. And so could you go to the next slide, please? Right? And so this is what I was really talking about. Is your paperwork in order? You're going to have to submit your 941s. You're going to have to submit your articles of incorporation, because once you get approved and get that loan number, they're going to want to see your ID to prove that you are who you said you were, They're going to make sure the person completing the application is the person that's going to sign the loan note. They want to make sure that you are going concern and you have registered all the proper city, county, and state registrations that make you viable to receive this money. And so the SBA will audit the information that they receive. So it's very, very important that you are on top of the things that you need to have in place, because banks and financial institutions, credit unions, and other CDFIs are being held accountable to know your customer. And if you do not have that documentation, then it's hard for them to know you. Now, in our case, we just didn't do our members. We opened it up and worked with lots of partners like Tamora, like Kristen, like CCLF, like LISC, and all those rest of those technical assistance agencies, because our job is to make sure that we're funding nonprofits and small business owners that make the community vibrant and are critical to the communities. So the way you make yourself known to us without having a pre-existing relationship is to have all your paperwork in order. Next slide. Right, and then finally, secure advisors. So I'm going to share some information I got back when I used to be a private client sales professional at Harris Bank. The center there at Loyola has a Center for Family Business, and they rank the importance of advisors. So these are the advisors you always want to have. You want to have an accountant, an attorney, and a banker, right? And obviously you can't overlook any technical assistance providers, because, you know, Tamora does a great job. She's plugged, has her ear to the ground. She's aware of funding assistance and all kind of other business planning templates that'll be of value for you to use as you make your loan proposals to guys like me. So you want to make sure you have that team in place. They're very important. You know, I know a lot of people that shy away from having advisors, not because the advisors aren't good and not that, you know, it's just because they don't quite understand the questions they should be asking their provider. You know, so go online, you know, with the advent of online resources, go out there and Google questions to ask as you select an attorney, questions to ask as you select a banker, just questions to ask. Now, the key with selecting a banker is remembering not all banks and credit unions are going to be able to be all things to all people. And by what I mean by that is banks have over time accumulated experience working with certain industries, which allow them to underwrite them better, to have a better understanding of how those various business models and inflows and outflows of cash work. So it'll be easier for you to get your arms around a transaction if your institution has already underwritten those type of transactions, right? So go out and look at institutions that are focused on your type of business. So if you're involved in real estate, like Kristen said, that's what CCLF does. That's what CIC does, right? So you want to find out what institutions do what you do. And then you want to build a relationship with a banker. So a guy like me, you know, if you have a deposit account with me, you can talk to me all the time. That's my job. My job is to make sure that you are going concerned and that you have the advice you need. And a lot of times, if you think about it, the pecking order I just shared was the attorney, the accountant, and then the banker. I'm the last guy on the totem pole, but I'm the guy that's giving you the money based on what the accountant, actually based on what the technical assistance folks suggested you do before you went to see your attorney that got you, that put you in appropriate legal structure, and then the accountant that made sure your books were correct. I'm just the guy on the back end that's going to provide that working capital, which is very important. So think about who your team is, have conversations and interview. And, you know, and the most important thing to do when you're having conversations is be upfront and forthright, right? And when a banker has a reservation about something you're doing, our job is to mitigate risk. So you should probably listen, because our models are designed to determine if there's some risk of repayment. So if someone gives you a no, ask them why, and then build upon that to develop a mitigant to get them to say a yes. Next slide, please. Boom. Right, so this tells you a little bit more about how you can connect with Kristen. Tamora shared her information. So please connect with us. Next slide, please. And, you know, in closing, thank you so much for allowing us to present. Kristen, do you have anything to add before we continue with this presentation?
I do want to clarify a few things. So while the PPP is forgivable, even if you have it forgiven, you still do need to repay the 1% interest. So the loan amount itself will be forgiven, but you do need to repay the interest. And as Daryl mentioned, it covers 8 weeks of your wages to employees. And so the reason I am emphasizing employees is because people have wanted to do 1099. And so if you are calculating payment to other individuals within your PPP as an organization, you cannot include those people you are paying as 1099. And many times people will say, yes, I have employees. I have 1099 employees. No, you do not have 1099 employees. That's impossible. You either have an employee or you have an independent contractor. You do not have a 1099 employee. And so these are some of the things that have been barriers in trying to get some of these applications done and actually calculating what the eligible loan amount is, because it's supposed to be 2.5 times those monthly wages. And so as Daryl mentioned, some of the documentation that is being requested is to actually come up with what that amount is so the lender can grant you that loan. And so should we go into the Q&A right now, Kendra?
Yes, definitely.
chat?
So, yes, we have a few questions actually that a few of the participants sent prior to the webinar, and then we have a few questions that actually are in the chat. So one question that was asked by Gunai Dada: can a non-for-profit get grants without a DUN number?
This is Tamora. So you need a DUNS number, even as a non-for-profit. So when you're registering your non-for-profit, it will require that you have a DUNS number, as well as then any other, based upon the grant will ask, do you have a DUNS number? And the grants that I've viewed now, when you look at the RFP, the request for proposal, those proposals are asking for a DUNS number. So it's free. You might as well just sign up for it. It doesn't cost you anything. So I would suggest just getting a DUNS number and having that number.
I do want to chime in. Some of the grants that are immediately available for COVID are not asking for a DUNS number, but as I mentioned, they are extremely competitive because they aren't asking for a lot of information at all. So it won't be a long RFP process. It will typically be very short. They will ask you for an EIN number, articles of incorporation, and certificate of good standing. But many of them are not asking for DUNS, but they are not large amounts either. So we might be talking $5,000, $10,000, but definitely when you are getting to larger grant amounts, yes, getting your DUNS is definitely necessary.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Tamora. We have another question here again from Ganu Dada. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. So the question is around, what about non-for-profits that have not paid wages, but have records of expenses for fundraising and consultants? So they're asking particularly from the EIDLA perspective. So is the question, I want to make sure I'm clear, is the question around, would you be able to apply for a loan or grant? Because I'm reading the question here, and it's basically stating that they have not paid wages, but they do have records of expenses for fundraising and expenses that they've paid out for consultants in particular.
And so I think he means the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, I think when he said particularly from the EIDLA. So the EIDL will cover things that the PPP will not. And so, yes, it will cover expenses, but you have to show, or you have to be able to identify how COVID has impacted your ability to fundraise or your ability to generate revenue if you are a for-profit business or a nonprofit, as far as whatever your passive income source happens to be. But you cannot, for PPP, no, you can't. It doesn't cover very much outside of payroll. So PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program, and it will not cover 1099 unless you yourself are the 1099 that is applying. But if you are an organization who has paid all of its staff in 1099s, or you've got 10 people on staff and you're paying 8 of them as 1099s and 2 as W-2s, you can only claim the ones for W-2s.
Thank you, Kristen. We have another question that came in. So Tamora, Daryl, or Kristen, have you all been able to assist individuals that are in the music industry that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic?
We've received or done some advising for individuals in the particular industry, but being able to advise them as a sole entrepreneur or a contractor or consultant to apply, then maybe for the PPP and the EIDL, but from a perspective that this has affected them, the COVID has affected them in some kind of way. So the advisement has been that if you are in a music industry, again, you need to have some paperwork to really show that you were paying yourself, or you were getting a weekly, you were somehow where you were just distributing funding to yourself, or even if you had a gig or you were doing something and now entertainment industry is kind of shut down, you still have to show proof that maybe if you had a contract or something, that you're able to show that contract that you normally had, that you already had a month, or 12 months that you were booked with a certain organization, but now, or company, or a restaurant or anything that now that's shut off, to be able to have that paperwork to show that that is a loss, but to then to show the back history that I've been doing this for 6 months at this place, at this location, they were paying me this amount, and now it's closed or it's shut down, and now I'm not able to generate that revenue. So you're gonna have to produce something, even in the music industry, because I know a lot of them are not able to, acquire the dollars that they normally get. You're gonna have to show proof, and I'm sure all of the people that are giving out loans and Darrell giving out loans, they're looking for that dollar amount. So that's what we're telling people, to make sure that they have their numbers together and their paperwork together, so that then when they get ready to talk to Darrell or get ready to talk to Kristen, that they have all of that ready to see if they can process those grants and forgivable loans.
And that is absolutely right, especially if you're applying for the PPP funding. The key there is you would have had to have filed your 2019 taxes. That came out in the guidance around April 15th. And so again, if you have not or were not able to file your taxes, so for instance, we did a lot of PPP loans for churches. You have musicians that get paid by the church. Some of them are W-2, some of them are 1099. The ones that got a 1099, if they filed their taxes and they had their 1099s and they could produce that documentation, then they were able to, receive PPP funding. Now, the trick to sole proprietors and 1099 employees is when you provide the Schedule C or your K-1, it won't be the gross amount that you received on your 1099. It's going to be the net amount that shows on your Schedule C or your K-1. So if you made $2,000, you had $100,000. You made $2,000, you had $1,000 of expenses. The amount on your Schedule C for the 2019 was $1,000. Then you divide that by 12 and multiply it by 2.5, as opposed to dividing the $2,000 by 12 and multiplying it by 2.5. So, had you W-2'd yourself, you would have been able to take the entire amount of your W-2 and divide that 2,000. Had that $2,000 been let's say you got it and you figured out a way to W-2 yourself, you could have shown me your W-2s or your 941s from your payroll company and gotten the full amount. So it is possible, but you got to really be on top of your paperwork. And sole proprietors and 1099 employees are the hardest folks to get through the PPP process. Not that we haven't done them. You just got to really know what the guidance says, and we think that we've done a good job knowing how to do that.
Thank you so much. So Daryl, Tamora, and Kristen, we don't have any further questions in the chat. So I want to thank you again for joining us for this week's webinar. And please, I know that you did have your information in the slide. There are a few people that did ask for your information. So if you're able to put your email address or website in the chat as well, so that can be captured. For all of the participants that are on the call, you will be receiving a follow-up email from ChiBizHub with a copy of the presentations. And if for some reason you know of someone that could not attend the webinar today, please have them visit www.chibizhub.com to visit our COVID-19 resource page, and you will find a recording of this webinar listed as well. Again, we thank Tamora, we thank Kristen, and we thank Daryl. Actually, Tamora is one of the resource providers that is listed on ChiBizHub. So we really appreciate her and the continued efforts that she's been doing with a lot of the residents in the Englewood community. Again, please visit our ChiBizHub website for further updates. A lot of the information that Daryl and Kristen mentioned, it is listed on our financial resources page. So we appreciate you all joining us this afternoon. Please tune in next Wednesday. We will be doing another webinar entitled Back to Basics, and we will have registration information listed soon on our website. Thank you again for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.